Civil War is about the responsibility of a camera. Last night I watched Civil War. It was an experience in connection and disconnection. The movie constantly attempts to establish a root in its surroundings, as only a movie that's exploring America really can, in that hyper-specific way of blending nature, highway, and you, the audience, on the road. It takes that root, it rips it out of the ground, and it holds it up under your nose, and it says, hey, this is what you wanted, right? It's not wrong. This is not strictly a technical review, it's just my thoughts, and spoilers from here on out, so I highly recommend watching the movie before you continue. Let's go. This movie follows a group of journalists in the midst of an American Civil War. There's several different neo-states that have formed out of the wreckage of the United States. You have the Loyalists, you have the Western Forces, you have the Florida Alliance. And sitting in that theater, I was absolutely clamoring for more details about these new states. When you're exposed to something so familiar yet so irrevocably changed, you're absolutely going to be curious and you're going to want to know more. However, the people in this story really can just take it for granted. The world for them has been going downhill for a while now. During their road trip, they stop in this little tiny hamlet. It's full of picturesque streets and sleepy little boutiques selling dresses. It's like a time machine, Joel says, and they're all thinking it too. The world of the past is gone. So far gone that, while still recognizable, it's kind of irrelevant. They move on soon afterwards, as men with rifles stare down at them from the rooftops. The journalists are a varied bunch. Lee Smith is a hardened war photographer who is famous all across the world for her work in war zones. Joel is a journalist from Florida who's looking for a particularly important interview. Sammy is our resident old-timer. He's been around the block and he's known Lee since the beginning of her career. Jesse, perhaps our most important character, is an aspiring photojournalist who actually holds up Lee as one of her heroes. She manages to get onto the truck right before they leave without Lee's knowledge. Jesse and Lee's relationship form the backbone of this story as they attempt to travel across the country to interview the President of the United States before his surrender. Lee is an interesting character to me. Her goal is to get the shot, the picture that defines a conflict. And oftentimes this will put her into conflict with others. She's quite hardened to violence and misery, but the fact that this is happening specifically in the United States has quite a sizable impact on her. She remarks to Sammy that when she was in those war zones sending off all those pictures home, she thought she was sending a message. Don't do this. As they gaze at tracer ammunition being fired off into the night sky, no one's listening. The ability to disconnect yourself from the experience that you're trying to capture in order to effectively capture it is, I think, the tragedy of the photographer. The act of hiding behind a viewfinder or a screen instead of actually experiencing that moment is something that I think anyone, even with a phone, has experienced before. Do you hold the phone up when you're singing Happy Birthday? Do you hold the phone up when you're 5 feet away from your favorite artist? Do you hold the phone up at that sunset to take that picture so that you can prove that, yeah, no, this time it really was that good? Or do you put the phone down and do you experience every single second of it because you're right, it is that good? Who are you taking the picture for? One of the most striking images from this movie is Lee sitting alone in a bathtub. She's rubbing her eyes, rubbing her face, as she is confronted with flashbacks from her past. People burning alive, people being shot, people being killed. It's in your face, it's inescapable, and it's loud. And throughout it all, Lee was there taking the picture. She seems almost transplanted into the scene every single time, solely focused on getting the shot, as if she's shunted the trauma from this event to this future self sitting in the bathtub. The disconnection of a camera cuts both ways. Throughout this movie, Lee seems to almost rediscover her humanity that she's been actively burying in pursuit of the shot. This is actively contrasted by Jesse. When we first meet Jessie, it's surrounded by angry, desperate civilians begging for water. She's notably holding a film camera and is the only person in this film to do so. She's clearly new at this whole photojournalist thing, but she has enthusiasm to compensate. Of course, it all goes downhill when a suicide bombing occurs, and it's only because of Lee tackling her to the ground that she's still able to participate in the events of the movie. When she manages to convince the group to tag along, without Lee's knowledge of course, you can clearly see her excitement and her enthusiasm, but most importantly, her desire to prove herself. She constantly seeks to emulate Lee, even when Lee makes it clear that if given the choice, she wouldn't have taken her along in the first place. Ironically, this leads to one of the most touching scenes in the movie where Sammy points out that, really, Jessie is the same age as Lee when she was first starting out, and that Lee isn't actually trying to protect Jessie, she's trying to protect a younger version of herself from the trauma that scarred her throughout her life. I think the key to understanding this movie is that, to me at least, Jessie is Lee. Jessie has that same daredevil streak, the same talent for composition, but notably, at least in the beginning, not the same detachedness. Lee is shown behind a soldier actively exchanging fire to an enemy above them behind a pillar. She's shown to have almost eerily similar movements to the soldier, ducking in and out of cover to avoid gunfire while still getting her shots off. She holds the camera like it's her weapon, and it is. As the movie goes on, Jessie starts to pick up these traits. She keeps her head down, she learns the timing between gunshots to make a mad dash, and perhaps most strikingly, her expression stops changing when she hears gunfire. At the end of this movie, I almost had the sense that Jessie was going to take Lee's name. The transformation had been so utterly complete. Lee, with the benefit of hindsight and the shock of seeing her home engulfed in, violence, feels guilt. She feels guilt, shame, and really just trauma from all the years of capturing pain coming back to bite her. I do think it's interesting that in the film, they show pretty much exclusively sequences in what you can kind of infer to be the Global South during her flashback sequences. And while those are certainly uncomfortable, they aren't really her breaking point. They're definitely bearable. It's when specifically she sees violence in America being done to Americans that really she hits her breaking point. To Jessie, this is pretty much all she's actually ever known. Her conscience is clear and all that trauma is being shunted forward to that future version of herself. Her home is violence now, and this is the United States of America to her. As they sweep through the White House, gunning down the last remaining loyalists, Jessie really doesn't show any kind of emotion other than this is her job, and perhaps this is what she likes doing. She is in the pursuit of the shot. This, of course, leads to one of the most impactful endings I've seen in modern memory. So I highly recommend going to see it for yourself. I'm not going to spoil it. I don't know what this movie is trying to tell me about photojournalism. I think that any definitive conclusion is kind of missing the point. What I do think, though, is that documenting misery and pain as a job is pretty dehumanizing. The movie even offers up the idea that perhaps it doesn't even matter anyway. People are still going to act the same way, even if they see pictures of people doing the same thing before. I am not so pessimistic. I do think it's very important for us to document what we do, how we do it, and the mistakes that we make. And while maybe it won't prevent anything, I do think that people will look back and realize we weren't the first ones, we weren't the last ones, but that also means that we have a chance to rebuild. That means that we have a chance in the future to try again. If you enjoyed this video, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching. Toss me a like, toss me a subscription, toss me a comment if you want to keep talking. I'm totally down to do it. And thank you. Oh, maybe take a look at one of my other videos. I mean, they're a lot less heavy than this. This is kind of an experiment for me, and I don't usually talk about movies like this on this channel. But yeah.